One of the things that I really love to do is I love to put the labels on my binding. Um, I had an incident many years ago where a label that I had put on the back of a quilt was taken off, and that quilt now hangs in a very predominant place and it doesn't have a label on it. Since then, I started putting the letters in my binding, and as you can see from the front, you can't see this at all. And here on the back, you see it. This one, because it's got happy faces. The name on the quilt is Because I'm Happy, and then I add my name, and then I add when the quilt was finally finished. So come and check it out. I'm going to show you how to do it on my FAF 725 expression, but you can do this on any machine that will do letters in a combination, or if you have letters with some kind of memory function. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to prepare your binding. And you're going to prepare your binding just normally, just like normal. And I probably have about 8 strips here. Now, when I started binding, I started about 10 inches down. So that's where we're a little bit different here. I count about 10 or 12 inches down, and I heavily starch this because we're going to put letters on this. We really need to have it kind of stabilized in such a way that that fabric doesn't scrunch up. So I use a product called Terreal Magic. And this right here is the concentrate. And in my bottle, it's just a spray bottle. I put maybe 10 parts Terreal Magic to 90 parts water. And then I put a couple of layers on this, and it makes this super stiff. The other thing that I would do, and I have done this a lot in the past, is I will cut a piece of tearaway stabilizer, and I will cut it a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch right there. And I will just cut a whole strip of that and go ahead and put it on the inside there. So that also works too. But now that we have this great product called Terreal Magic, I just use that. And so as I'm preparing my binding, I go ahead and heavily starch that. It almost gives it like a paper quality, which I really, really like. So today I'm working on my FAF quilt expression 725. You see right there. This is a new to me machine. I've actually just recently changed brands. And one of the reasons why I did get this machine is because it will do these letters really easily. So this isn't a tutorial on basically how you can program your own letters. Hopefully you have figured that out, but I am going to give you briefly on how to do it on the FOF. So the first thing that you're going to do is touch your create sequence there, and that opens this up into a new window. I like for my letters either the block alphabet or the comic alphabet. So I am going to go ahead and touch the comic alphabet, and this keyboard right here opens up. Now, the name of this quilt, you always give your quilts a name, I guess, or you can write who you want it for, or like to Tommy, to my ungrateful relative. I hope you keep warm in this. But I usually give my quilts an actual name because I never know who's really going to get it by the time I'm making it. So in this particular instance, I'm going to use my keyboard here, and and you can actually put like a decorative stitch first if you want. And let me go here to my decorative stitches, and I can add, let's see, I can add something like this. I've done that one before. And now I'm going to go back to my letters, and you see how it added that stitch there. I'm going to go to my letters. Now this particular quilt, I'm calling it flying. See, FLY, flying high above the harbor. And the reason why I'm doing that and calling it that in particular is because that's actually a combination of all the things that I used. The fabric that I'm using is called High Flight. The free pattern that I got is Deep Waters. And the quilting pattern is Harbor Wave. So it's just a combination of all of those things. Now, in the FAF, you only get a limited amount of letters, and I think it's like 75 before it ends. So if you're trying to write like a super long message, you might have to do that in 2 parts. But I've got a space right here, so let's see how far we can get on this. And I'm not going to put a decorative stitch on there because I really don't want to. So let's come out, and I'm just going to go ahead with the alphabet, and I am going to say flying high above space. And I love this because I get an actual space, right? I don't have to go find a different key for this. Above the harbor, H-A-R-B-O-U-R. Now I'm going to give it another space, and then you can say, I mean, whatever you want. From much love, da-da-da-da-da. I usually just always say maker, M-A-K-E-R, because I made it, and I also quilted it. Maker, Jessie. And you do want to check for spelling mistakes. Now, Jessie Moyer, and then I put the date. So we are in January, January, January. And then at this point, I usually only put a year, 2026. This will be my first complete finish of 2026. So up here, I've got fonts. I've got a green check. I'm going to go ahead and green check that. And it puts this here in my sequence. So I've got the laser that's come up here because that was the last thing open. I'm going to go ahead and close this whole thing. And you see there's a little cursor there, so it's showing me that it's going to start. So now I'm going to show you how to stitch this out. All right, so I'm getting ready to start now. And this is the tricky part. So you want to make sure that you have on your basic foot. This is on mine. It's got a 9mm opening. This is like your generic foot. With this one, I think it's called foot A. It's called foot something or the other. It's the one that always comes on your machine. So it's just a standard presser foot, but it should have either your 9mm opening or 5mm opening or whatever that is. That's that little opening right there. And then you have your fabric that's been pressed and starched and stabilized. And then you want to make sure that you have a thread that is contrasting, that you know is really, really going to show up. So this is like a white binding. I don't want to put white thread in there. I do use embroidery thread, and I use the same color in the top and in the bottom. And in this instance, usually I don't bother with this because machines are usually this advanced, but in this instance, I do want to pick up my bobbin thread because when I start this, I want to be able to hold my thread tails. So I am just going to do a needle down and a needle up. And let me lift my presser foot up there, and there we go. And I'm just going to use some tweezers to get that bobbin thread because it has an automatic thread cutter, so it cuts it pretty short. I'm just going to get that right there. Boom. Perfect. Now I got them both sitting right there. So I'm going to take my binding. I am going to count about 10 or 12 inches or wherever you started stabilizing that. And this is right here about where I feel that hardness. If you have a piece of stabilizer in there, you can put a pin right there so you know where to start. It's all up to you. What I want is I want the fold to be on the inside. That fold I want to be towards my machine bed on the right-hand side over here, like a 1/4 inch, everything is over on this side of the foot. And then the opening is going to be over here on the left. Fold to the right, opening to the left. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to put this under my machine. And what I want to do, I'm going to hold on to my thread tails right there because I want to know where that's at. I am going to lower my presser foot, and where this little opening is right here on your 9mm, I want that to actually be riding the edge of that fold, right? So I'm going to just lift this up and position this a little bit more. And as you can see, that fold right there, there's a little line on my foot. It's kind of even with that. So I'm going to do the lift up my bobbin thread one more time because I want it to come through this fabric. So I'm going to needle down, needle up, press your foot up. And there it is. Get my scissors to sweep this out. And if you're a quilter, like you do your own machine quilting, you know how this process works. You always want to pull up your bobbin thread. I'm holding on to it there with my hand, and I'm going to put my presser foot back down. And I'm just going to line that up one more time. So my fold is there aligned with that line or lined up with the opening of that foot. And here we go. If you line it up like that, it should line up exactly where you need. So we're just going to go for it now. And you don't want to push and pull your fabric because that will cause your letters to be off. Okay, you just want to just guide it, and I can let my tails go now. So you just want to guide your fabric. And if you have a start-stop button, you can use a start-stop button. I usually just always use my foot pedal. I don't know why. I am keeping track of where I am in the design because when I'm on the last letter, I want to make sure that I do some kind of like pattern end, or that I know it is the last letter and I can just take my foot off the foot pedal, because otherwise it will restart your letters again and then you'll get a double label. So you always want to make sure that you have enough slack, and I'm getting right here to the end of what I had pulled. So I'm just going to undo some of my bobbin here, my binding. I'm just going to undo it and give me some more slack. So that way it is laying here, and I'm just going to keep going. And I'm on the last letter, so I hit my stop button. It'll finish that letter, tie a securing knot, and then I'm just going to hit my scissors and we're going to be done there. And then let's have a look. Flying High Above the Harbor. Maker, Jessie Moyer, January 2026. Now let's go ahead and get this attached. Okay, so when I like to do a binding, I do like to start on the right hand long side of my quilt. I don't know why, that just happens to be my preferred place to do this. And because I have points, I actually trimmed my quilt a 1/4 inch away from the points. And we can talk about that later. But I did, so that way I have a nice full binding. So now I'm going to take the binding that I prepared here with my label. All right, so I'm going to put my binding right side down, and I want the raw edge to be over here on the right hand side. What that allows me to do is when I stitch this down, this is going to fold over and then fold over again to the back, and I'll show you how that works. So again, I want to start right where my letters are. So I'm going to be lined up here on my fabric. Now, as you can see here, I have left my utility foot on. I'm not using a 1/4 inch foot, but I did move my needle over to give me a 1/4 inch. I like to have this wider foot on there for more of stability. Because I'm using a FAF, I also have my IDT engaged. And so I am just going to go ahead and give this a go. So I'm going to take a couple of stitches. And then I'm going to reverse sew to secure those in and then come back forward. Now, usually I would do all of this, but we're only learning how to do this label. So I'm going to stop it right here, and I probably am just going to secure this a couple stitches and go forward, and then go ahead and break my thread, and we're going to go ahead and look at this on how this works. So there's my label on there, and let's go ahead and flip it over. There you go. Now, this is why I went a 1/4 inch. I didn't want to cut my points off on this, but I also do not want like a 1/2 inch binding on the back. That is why I have this extra 1/4 inch right here. So I'm going to flip it over. When I flip this over for hand stitching, it will fall right there where the letters are, like so. I know it's upside down right now, but that's because I'm showing you in real time. Okay, and that's how that works. And then you would just come and press that, and then come and do your hand stitching, and then your binding should be equal because you did it a 1/4 inch away from those points, should be equal on the front as well as the back. And that is how you put these labels on. Remember, no quilt should ever go out unlabeled, because in 100 years, and somebody sees your quilt in the Goodwill, they're going to wonder, hey, who made this? Don't let them wonder. Let them know you made that quilt. Now you know.